to my studio. This is Colleen with Designs of Value Art, and today we're going to do a little bit of the background underneath the stem on the apple and kind of get that cleaned up, and then we'll work with the stem and get that completed. I'm just going to show you here where we got that upper right hand light source. And then we're also going to go to the details and add in the details. First thing we'll have to do for the details is make a color using our mixing brush. And when you use your mixing brush instead of your own good brushes, you're saving yourself money because your good brushes will get worn down by doing the mixing process. That's why you want to have your own separate mixing brush just for mixing your colors, and it'll save your good brushes quite a bit. So what we're going to do is pick up some of the Alizarin Crimson Deep. We're going to add that in. And it's going to make a much more vibrant, brighter color that will show up on the apple better. At this point, we do already have our gentle glaze on the bottom of the apple so that we can go ahead and put our details on there. You want to make sure that your brush doesn't have too much paint on it, and you can just take your baby cloth and wipe it off like that. And this is showing up a lot better, so I'm real happy with the way this is looking so far with that addition of the Alizarin Crimson Deep. Now you don't want to do this real uniform. You kind of want to follow the resource material at this point. You don't want it to look real standard. You also don't want to do any shorthand or anything like that in there. Just make it look as realistic as possible. And what's nice about this then, once we get the details in, we'll do a glaze on top of yellow, and that will set these details into the apple and make them look like they are a part of that apple. And I'm just finishing up the outside edge over here. It needed a little bit more color. And I'll do that on the other side as well right away, as long as we're doing this. I had a lot of paint on my brush, so all I did was clean my brush. And now I'm just softening that color with straight water and no more paint. Just softening the inside of that color, keeping the outside nice and sharp, like the apple is. Cleaning up a spot there that I'm not happy with. We're going to bring this color all the way up to the top as well. Kind of outlines the apple completely. That darker color. There we go. That makes it look a lot better, more soft, more realistic. Now we're going to do the other side and get that looking the same. And I really love this Lazy Susan for this reason right here. Just turning that small project, it's just perfect. I think I picked that up on Amazon for less than $10, so it was well worth it. It's a real lovely little Lazy Susan. And I have a 100% cotton paper. I picked that up on Amazon as well. It's called Fluid. And Speedball actually manufactures this watercolor paper. It's less expensive, but for a real little tiny project like what we're doing here, it's perfect. And that 100% cotton then allows the paint to respond the same way as it would on an Arches paper, for example. And then you're not paying the exorbitant price just for a little tiny project. Just cleaning up this edge here a little bit. Wanting it to blend into the top of the apple too, so it doesn't look like it's just sitting there. There we go, that looks better. Do the other side of the stem. Again, just taking the tip of my brush, clean brush with clean water, and laying that brush right flat to the paper and just letting the tip grab the paint and smooth it. And what that does then is it deposits some water for that new paint application to flow into, and it makes it much smoother. Getting this side a little bit better. It looks like it's got a little bit, almost a square look to it right now. Take my eradicator, get it moist. You don't want it dripping wet, but you don't want it completely dry either. And then you can clean up your edges and that'll make it look less square. Take your clean paper towel and rub it towards the project. If you rub it off of the project onto the paper, you're going to have a smear on that clean white surface, so you don't want to do that. You always, always want to clean your eradicator in between strokes. Otherwise, you're just reapplying the paint that you've just removed, and you don't want to do that. You're just going to make your life a lot more difficult than it needs to be. And you always want to keep a outside of an apple looking pretty crisp, especially against a white surface like this. Eradicators are invaluable. I think there's times I use that more than I use a round. It seems like we all make mistakes, and if you can correct them and to the point that you wouldn't even see them, that's perfect. That's exactly what we want. There's so many ways to resolve any errors in a design, but the eradicator is usually the first one I go for. It works out the best for me. Let's just take a look at it real quick to see what else we need now. We need to do some dots, and you want these dots to be random. You don't want them to be uniform throughout. I've gone to a number 4 brush with a nice point. I'm going to take some of that paint off so it's not too much, and just by wiping the brush right by the ferrule there, we'll take some of that paint out and not disturb your tip of your brush. So that's a nice little trick too. Probably took too much paint out there, so we're reloading. There we go. Some of them do come out on the yellow color, so be sure and do that. Now, these are just normal little marks that you're going to see on an apple. Since I have that spot there that I wanted to do something with, let's just put some markings on there, and then we won't have to do anything else to it, and it'll fit right into the apple. Just going all the way around. There's a few on the right hand side of the apple, but not many. So keep that in mind. But you do want to get some into the yellow. That's real important. And by doing this, what this is doing is it's creating values for that apple as well. So it has the curve that you're looking for with that apple. And we're illusionists. What we're trying to do is create an illusion that this apple is round and that the top is coming forward and the bottom is folding away. And it doesn't matter if it's a leaf or a petal. You can create that illusion with any item that you're painting. You can always bring, if you're painting a pansy, for example, that's sitting on top of other pansies, but you want the front one to come real close, darken the ones around it. That's going to set them down and bring yours forward, the top one forward. And if that's what you're looking to do, it's a perfect solution. So always keep that in mind. You always have that option available to you to make something look realistic that way. Just going over some of those larger markings so that they're a little bit darker. And don't forget, watercolors paint dries less vibrant than it looks when it's wet. So it's always going to dry a little darker than the way it looks when it's wet. So important to know. So let's go ahead and make a mixture of burnt umber and burnt sienna for our stem. And of course, since we have an upper right hand light source, the left hand side of our stem will be the darkest. Now I only need one layer of water glaze on this small of an area. So you don't want to have too much water in that stem. So just one glaze is good. If it were a larger stem, then we could go ahead and put in a couple, but just one will work. And then the left-hand side is where we're going to lay down our first portion of paint. Don't forget, wherever you put your brush down after you've reloaded it the first time, it is going to be the darkest area. So keep that in mind and look for that darkest area on your resource material. And that's where you want to put your brush down. It's right where it is the darkest area. Underneath the top of the stem is going to be dark as well. We're going to have a highlight right down the right hand side. So we're going to have some dark value over there as well. But the majority of the dark value will be on the left. Filling that all in at this point. Picking up more paint. Actually, I dry wiped my brush and we're pulling a little bit of that paint out of the right hand side. You need your brush to be drier than the paper and the paint that's on it to be able to pick that color up. Bringing some up on the left-hand side and around the top. Get some value in the top of the much lighter value. Actually, this is wet on dry in this area. Making sure it looks nice and smooth. And then we'll get some more details in there as well. I like to bring my stems out just a little bit further like that. Creating a little bit of a value change down the center. Bringing in some of that yellow so that it matches into the rest of the painting. There we go, that looks a little bit better. Just checking to see if there's a lot of moisture right there. There doesn't seem to be. Going to reinforce the inside of the apple. Some darker values. Sets that stem down in then. Again, we're illusionists, so we want to make sure that that stem appears to be coming out of the inside of the apple. And I'm just moving my Lazy Susan around so it's easier for me to get at. Now we'll do the other side real quick. Get some better values in there. See how that just sets that right down? Separate from the front of the apple, and that's what you want. So that the viewer knows that there's an actual hole right there, and that's where the stem's coming from. That's what we're trying to create here. Smoothing the inside edge of that paint. We're going to reinforce that inside later once that section is dry. So now that our details are nice and dry, we can go ahead and put a glaze of water on there. That will set everything in as far as the detail, so it looks like it's part of the apple. I'm going to darken the left-hand side of the stem a little bit first, and the upper left-hand side on the top of the stem too. You want to get as many value changes in your items as you can. Softening the inside edge. You can put as much detail in these as you want. I like to bring a little bit of the dark value out to the right hand side just a little bit. And then you can actually see the outside edge of that stem that way. Bring that end of that stem out just a little bit further. detail. So now I bet the detail's nice and dry that we are able to go ahead and put that glaze in once we get this top portion the way we want it. Just putting on a little bit darker value on the inside of that stem. Now we'll soften it out, running the tip of that brush right across the edge of the paint, putting down clean water for it to run into. Pulling it out. Smoothing it out. And we're going to just pick up some of the lemon yellow and Sennelier Yellow mixture that we started on the apple, and we're going to do a glaze. So here we go. Let's go ahead and put this glaze in. You'll be amazed how beautiful this is. Now, you are able to do as many glazes as you want, but when you put your water down, you have to be very gentle. If you're going to, I'm actually not doing water, I'm just doing the glaze. But you can do water first and then add the glaze on top. It's your choice, whatever you're the most comfortable with. And you can do 2, 3, 4 glazes if you want, but it does really deepen the values of the apple, so it's really lovely. Make sure everything's nice and smooth. As you can see, I'm using this side of my brush with that glaze. You can go right over the highlights. That's not going to matter. They're still going to show through. But again, that sets those design elements right into the apple itself. See how lovely it looks with that glaze on there? Really makes quite a difference. Now you can go ahead and sign your name. And don't forget, you always want to practice your signature and make it look uniform from project to project. I'm just picking up some of the reddish color. I signed my name with a C dot and then Aiken. And since this is my own design, I can put a copyright mark on it. And that pretty much finishes our design. I'd like to recommend that you take a look at my YouTube channel, Designs of Value Art. Also, my website is designsofvalueart.com. And I also have Patreon. So I'm on Patreon under Designs of Value. And I'm also on eBay under Designs of Value Art as my store name. So be sure and check me out. I hope you enjoyed this simple project. It will be available on YouTube shortly. I'm going to do a quick one so we can put it on a short. Thank you so much. You have a lovely day, folks.